Some things on the internet are not meant to be found. They lurk in the shadows, waiting.
Before we begin, I need to tell you something. The person who sent me story number 3, they deleted their account the very next day. Their last message to me was just 2 words. It listened. Tonight, I'm sharing 5 disturbing true horror stories. Real people, real locations, real consequences. One of these people hasn't logged in for 3 months. Another family? They had 48 hours to escape their dream home, and then they vanished. I need you to understand, these aren't just stories for entertainment. Some of these people are still missing. Some went silent. And one of these stories contains instructions that you'll have to decide if you want to follow. If you're watching this alone at night, good. You'll need the darkness for what's coming. Hit that subscribe button, turn off the lights, and let's begin with story number 1. Before we begin, I need you to understand something. The person who sent me story number 3 deleted their account the day after. Their last message to me was just 2 words. It listened. I know you're settling in for another night of horror stories. Maybe you're in bed, lights off, phone glowing in the dark. Maybe you're driving through empty highways, looking for something to pass the time. Whatever brought you here, I need you to know that what you're about to hear isn't entertainment in the traditional sense. These are accounts from real people, real locations, and for some of them, real consequences that are still unfolding. The 5 stories I'm sharing tonight came from different sources, different states, different people who've never met each other. But there's something connecting them, a pattern I didn't see until I laid them all out together. And honestly, I'm still not sure if I should be telling you this point. One of these stories contains instructions. When you hear them, you'll have to decide for yourself whether knowing them was worth it. Because some knowledge, once you have it, changes how you see the world. And you can't unsee it. The person who sent me story 3, they haven't logged in for 3 months now. Let's begin. This first story comes from Marcus, 22, Portland, Oregon. He sent this to me 6 weeks ago, and I verified the address he mentions. The house is real. The listing is still active. Here's what Marcus told me. I thought I got lucky with the rent. I was wrong about the reason it was cheap. When I found the room listing back in September, it seemed too good to be true. $700 a month for a private room in Northeast Portland, 10 minutes from campus, utilities included. The landlord, Mr. Hendricks, seemed normal enough during the walkthrough. Older guy, maybe mid-60s, owned the house for 30 years. He explained the previous tenant had moved out suddenly for work, left some boxes behind in the basement storage area, but they'd be cleared out soon. I signed the lease that afternoon. The room was decent. Nothing fancy, but it had everything I needed. Shared bathroom with 2 other tenants, grad students who kept to themselves. The basement was unfinished, accessible through a door off the kitchen. Washer and dryer down there, plus some storage cages for each tenant. Mr. Hendricks told me mine was the one on the left and to just ignore the boxes in the corner. They'd be gone by the end of the month. They weren't. After 6 weeks, the boxes were still there, collecting dust. I wouldn't have touched them except I needed to grab my winter clothes from storage, and I accidentally knocked one over reaching past them. Contents spilled everywhere. Papers, notebooks, random junk. And that's when I saw my name. Not on an envelope or anything official. On a notebook page, in handwriting I didn't recognize. Just my name, Marcus Chun, written in the margin next to a date from 3 weeks ago, before I'd even moved in. I should have left it alone. Instead, I opened the journal. The early entries seemed normal. Someone documenting their daily life, thoughts about work, complaints about traffic. The tenant's name was David Kowalski, based on the labels on the boxes. He'd moved in 2 years before me. But around month 3, the entries changed. He started writing about the other tenants. Not just casual observations, detailed notes. Their schedules, what time they came home, what they ate, who they called. One entry described another tenant's phone conversation word for word, a private call she'd made from her room. There was no way he should have heard it that clearly. The entries got worse. He wrote about watching people sleep, described their dreams, their nightmares, the way they moved under the covers. He knew things about their personal lives they'd never shared with anyone in the house. Bank account numbers, passwords, fears they'd only ever typed into their phones. I felt sick reading it, but I couldn't stop. Then I found the entries about the house itself. David wrote about the spaces between spaces, how the house had gaps in its architecture, places where you could move unseen if you knew where to look. He'd mapped them out, drew diagrams of crawl spaces and gaps behind walls, places where someone could hide and watch. During the day, I told myself it was just a crazy person's ramblings. But at night, lying in bed, I'd hear the house settling and wonder if it was really just the house. Every creak became footsteps. Every draft became breathing. I checked the dates on the later entries. David had supposedly moved out in July, but the journal entries continued into August, then September, then October. October was when I'd moved in, and the entries mentioned me, not by name at first, just new tenant, northeast room, but then details only I would know. The time I woke up each morning, the YouTube videos I watched before bed, the nightmare I'd had about drowning, a dream I'd never told anyone about. The most recent entry was dated 2 days before I found the journal. Marcus doesn't lock his door when he showers. Trusting, that'll change. I confronted Mr. Hendricks the next morning, asked him about David, about when he'd actually moved out, about why his stuff was still here. The landlord's face went pale. He said David had left in July, paid through the end of his lease, took most of his belongings. Said he'd meant to clear out the storage, but kept forgetting. Has he been back? I asked. To get his things? Mr. Hendricks hesitated. No, but sometimes I think. He stopped himself. Just ignore those boxes. I'll have them removed this week. But that night, I went back to the journal. Found an entry I'd missed before, dated 3 weeks after David supposedly moved out. It mentioned the crawl space behind the water heater, a gap in the basement wall that led to spaces under the house. The landlord doesn't know about this one. No one does. I can come and go whenever I want. I grabbed a flashlight and went down to the basement. Found the water heater in the corner, and behind it, hidden by shadow, was a gap in the concrete foundation, just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. I should have called the police. Instead, I shined my flashlight into the gap. There were blankets inside, food wrappers, a sleeping bag, and sitting on top of the sleeping bag was the journal I'd been reading upstairs. The same journal, except this one was open to today's date, and there was a new entry written in fresh ink. Marcus found the journal I left for him. He's in the basement now. I'm in his room. I heard footsteps upstairs. I moved out that night. Broke my lease, lost my deposit, didn't care. Crashed with friends until I found a new place across town. That was 4 weeks ago. I still check the rental listings sometimes. Can't help myself. The room's been relisted twice since I left. Someone new moved in last week. That story came from Portland. This next one, middle of nowhere, Kansas. Because apparently, there's no safe distance from this kind of thing. Sarah Milliken sent me this 3 months ago. She included photos, but I've decided not to share them. You'll understand why. Dad's suicide note said don't take the job. I should have listened. I grew up in Mercer, Kansas. Population 300 and dropping. The kind of town where everyone knows everyone, where your last name means something, where leaving feels like betrayal. The Milliken family had been there for 4 generations. My great-grandfather built the grain elevator back in 1952, and a Milliken had maintained it ever since, even after it closed in 2003. When Dad died last April, the town council approached me at the funeral, said they needed someone to keep an eye on the property, make sure kids didn't break in, keep the structure from becoming a liability. Standard watchman duties. They'd pay me a small stipend from the town budget. It seemed like easy money, and honestly, I needed the connection to Dad. Some way to feel close to him after the way he'd gone. His note had only 3 lines. "Sarah, I'm sorry. Don't take the job. Some cycles can't be broken." I took the job anyway. The elevator sat at the edge of town, 100 feet of concrete and rust overlooking empty fields. Inside, it still smelled like grain dust and machinery grease, even after 2 decades of disuse. The main floor was empty except for old equipment. The office upstairs had Dad's desk, some filing cabinets, a coffee maker he'd kept plugged in. I found the hidden room 3 weeks into the job. Behind a loose panel in the office wall was a space Dad had carved out, maybe 6 feet by 8. The walls were covered in papers, photographs, documents. A desk with locked drawers. Filing cabinets stuffed with folders. And covering every available surface. Children's drawings. Crayon and marker on construction paper. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Up from the bottom. The drawings were crude, the way children draw, but the progression was clear. In the earliest ones, dated 1989, the figure was small, barely visible at the bottom of the shaft. By 1996, it had climbed higher. The 2003 drawings showed it near the surface, and the detail had improved. Too much detail for children's drawings. I found Dad's logs in the locked drawers. He'd been documenting this for 30 years. According to his notes, the drawings appeared overnight. He'd lock the building, check every room, leave it empty. Come back in the morning to find fresh drawings scattered across the main floor. Always near the shaft opening. Always showing the same progression that he'd tried everything to figure out who was leaving them. Cameras, they'd malfunction. Locks, the drawings appeared anyway. He'd even spent nights inside, watching, and woke up to new drawings he hadn't seen placed. But what made me go cold was the correlation he'd found. Every drawing was dated, and next to each date in his logs, Dad had noted something else: disappearances. 1989, 3 children vanished from Mercer and surrounding towns. Never found. 1996, 2 teenagers and 1 adult. Gone without trace. 2003, for people, the year the elevator closed. Dad had documented a pattern. The drawings appeared in 7-year cycles. Each cycle, the figure in the drawings climbed higher. And each cycle, people disappeared during what Dad called harvest years. I checked the dates. The current cycle had started in June, 6 years and 11 months ago. We were 3 weeks away from 7 years. I needed to know more about the harvest years, but people in Mercer didn't talk about them. I finally cornered Earl Patterson at the diner. He was 83, remembered everything, and had enough whiskey in him to loosen his tongue. "The harvest years," he said, staring into his coffee. "That's what old-timers called them. Every 7 years, people would go missing. Started long before your family ran that elevator. My grandfather said it went back to before the town was founded, back when this was just prairie. Something under the ground. The elevator just happened to get built over it." "What happens during harvest years?" I asked. Earl looked at me with something like pity. "Whatever's down there wakes up, gets hungry, takes what it needs. Then it sleeps again." He leaned closer. "Your daddy, he tried to warn the council back in 2003. Wanted to fill the shaft with concrete, seal it permanently. They said he was crazy. A month later, people vanished, and the town shut the elevator down. Thought that would be enough. But they kept Dad on as watchman. Someone had to watch for the drawings. Someone had to know when it was waking up again. Earl's hand shook as he raised his cup. We don't talk about the harvest years, Sarah. Talking about it, that's how it notices you. I went back to the hidden room that night and looked through Dad's files more carefully. Found his entries from the last few months before he died. The handwriting got shakier, more desperate. He'd been finding drawings again, but these were different. These weren't made by children. The drawings in his final folder were detailed architectural sketches showing the shaft's interior structure, the depth, the bottom chamber. They were done in pencil with precise measurements, architectural knowledge, an adult's hand. Dad's hand. The last entry in his log was dated the day before he died. I've been drawing them in my sleep. It's showing me what's down there, what's been climbing. I can't let it reach the surface. I can't let Sarah take this job. But the town council will ask her. They always choose family. The cycle demands it. Underneath, he'd written, "It's not drawings. It's communication. It's teaching us to see it. And once you see it clearly enough, you become part of the pattern." I wanted to leave right then, pack my car, and drive until Mercer was a memory. But something made me check the main floor one more time. Fresh drawings were scattered around the shaft opening. But there were no children in Mercer anymore. The school had closed in 2015. The youngest person in town was 17. The drawings showed the figure at the surface now, emerging from the shaft. The detail was impossible, every line exact, every shadow precisely rendered. These weren't children's drawings anymore. They were blueprints. I heard something then, a sound from deep in the shaft, like machinery grinding, or maybe like breathing. The building seemed to settle, and dust rained down from the ceiling. The drawings on the floor rustled in a breeze that came from below. I ran, got in my car, and drove straight through to Oklahoma City. Called the town council the next morning and quit. Told them I'd sealed the door, changed the locks, and they could find someone else. They said they understood, said they'd take care of it. But I heard something in the council president's voice, resignation, maybe, or acceptance. I'm posting this because the 7 years are up next month, April 15th. If anyone lives near Mercer, Kansas, or if you're driving through and see a grain elevator standing alone in empty fields, just keep driving. Don't stop. Don't look too long. And if you wake up one morning with pencil dust under your fingernails and drawings you don't remember making, get as far away as you can. At least Sarah had warning signs. The person in this next story, they didn't realize anything was wrong until it was already inside their head. Before we continue, I need to address something. 3 of you have already emailed me about story number 4. You know who you are. And yes, we need to talk after this video goes live, because what you've described matches details I haven't shared publicly yet. I want to thank everyone who's been submitting stories. The response has been overwhelming, and I'm working through everything you've sent. Some of you have noticed connections between different accounts. The comment section theories about the staircase story and the mirror man were impressive. A few of you have even joined the Discord to coordinate research, cross-referencing locations and dates. That's exactly the kind of community investigation I hope this channel would inspire. Because here's the thing, I'm starting to believe these stories aren't isolated incidents. There are patterns, geographical clusters, timing correlations. Some of you are seeing it too, but I also need to be honest with you. This next story is different. It's not about what the narrator saw. It's about what they can't stop seeing. And the details they've shared. I've verified what I can. The location exists. The building exists. But whether you believe what happened there, that's something you'll have to decide for yourself. Remember, these are meant to be fictional stories, but they give us real nightmares. Drop your theories in the comments. Tell me what you think connects these accounts. And if you've experienced something similar, You know where to find me. This is the account I mentioned at the start. The one whose author deleted everything the day after sending it to me. Their last message was, "It listened." I'm sharing this with their permission from their drafts folder because they wanted someone to know, even if they couldn't bear to post it themselves. Here's what they wrote. I'm writing this at 3 a.m. because I'm afraid to sleep. The dream started 6 weeks ago. Same room, every night, unchanged in every detail. Victorian wallpaper, faded burgundy with gold filigree. A brass bed frame against the far wall. A nightstand with an oil lamp that doesn't light. A chair by the window with cushions worn flat. And on the eastern wall, a water stain shaped like a reaching hand. I'm not someone who remembers dreams. Most mornings, I wake up with nothing but vague impressions, fragments that dissolve before breakfast. But this room? I could draw every inch of it. Every crack in the plaster. Every loose floorboard. The way dust hangs in the afternoon light that comes through windows I never see the outside of. For the first 2 weeks, I thought it was just a weird quirk. A recurring dream, nothing more. Harmless. The problem isn't that I'm dreaming of this room. The problem is what I found on my nightstand this morning. My watch, the one I wore to bed, covered in dust and smelling like mildew. And when I checked the timestamp on the last alarm I'd set, it showed I'd been somewhere without cell service for 4 hours during the night. I have no memory of leaving my apartment. Let me back up. The room in my dreams is specific, not generic dream logic where things shift and change. This room is fixed, consistent, real. The wallpaper pattern is continuous. I've traced it with my eyes enough times to know every repeat. The floorboards creak in specific places. There's a chip in the lamp's glass chimney at exactly 7 o'clock if you're looking at it straight on. After 3 weeks of the same dream, I became obsessed with finding it. I started searching online. Victorian architecture, abandoned buildings, asylum interiors. I went through thousands of images, looking for that specific wallpaper pattern, that exact room configuration. I found it on page 11 of a Google Images search, an urbex photographer's blog post from 2019. The photo was tagged Harrow State Hospital, E Wing, room 237. And it was exactly, pixel perfect exactly, the room from my dreams. Same wallpaper, same stain. Same brass bed frame. I messaged the photographer immediately. Guy named Derek, amateur urban explorer, documented abandoned sites across the Northeast. He confirmed the location, Harrow State Hospital in rural Vermont, closed since 1989. He'd been inside twice, said most of the place was gutted, but E Wing was still intact. Hadn't been touched in decades. Why room 237 specifically, he asked. Couldn't explain without sounding insane, so I just said I was interested in the architecture. He sent me the address and warned me the place was dangerous, rotted floors, asbestos, the usual. But he also said something that stuck with me. That wing has a weird vibe. Both times I went, I got turned around in there. Ended up in rooms I didn't mean to visit. And I kept having this feeling I was supposed to stay. I drove up the following weekend. Harrow State Hospital is exactly as isolated as you'd imagine. 40 minutes from the nearest town, at the end of a fire road that barely qualifies as drivable. The main building is 5 stories of rotting brick and broken windows, but E Wing extends off the eastern side, a separate structure connected by a covered walkway. I found room 237 on the 2nd floor. The door was unlocked, and when I pushed it open, my stomach dropped. It was the room from my dreams. Not similar, not close, identical. The wallpaper, faded but still showing that burgundy and gold pattern. The brass bed frame, still there, mattress long gone, but the frame intact. The nightstand with the oil lamp, glass chimney chipped at 7 o'clock. The water stain on the eastern wall in the exact shape I'd memorized. I stood in the doorway for 5 minutes, just breathing, trying to process it. This room existed. I'd been dreaming of a real place I'd never visited. And then I saw my jacket draped over the chair by the window. The jacket I was wearing 2 nights ago. The jacket I'd hung in my closet before bed. The jacket that should have been 200 miles away in my apartment. I picked it up with shaking hands. It smelled like me, my detergent, my cologne. The pockets had my receipts, my chapstick, my car keys. My car keys that were also in my pocket right now. I checked my key ring. I had 2 copies of my car key. I'd always had 2 copies. I looked back at the nightstand. My watch was there. The same watch I'd found on my nightstand at home that morning, the one covered in dust. Except this one was still running, keeping perfect time, and it was clean. I don't remember leaving the room. I don't remember getting back to my car. I know I drove home because I woke up in my apartment the next morning, fully clothed, mud on my shoes, and no memory of the drive. But I had photos on my phone. Dozens of them. Room 237 from every angle. And in the metadata, timestamps showing I'd been there for 6 hours, not the 90 minutes I remembered. I researched Harrow State Hospital obsessively. Found old records, news articles, academic papers. The hospital opened in 1927, closed amid scandal in 1989 after allegations of experimental treatments. E-Wing had been the sleep therapy ward. In the 1960s and 70s, they'd conducted experiments on chronic insomniacs and patients with severe sleep disorders. Tried to induce controlled dreaming, therapeutic sleep states, something called somnambulant therapy. The records were vague, heavily redacted in the digitized archives, but one phrase kept appearing: the calling. I found a patient log in a scanned document from 1972. The handwriting was barely legible, but I could make out enough. Subject 14 arrived at room 237 at 3:47 a.m. No conscious memory of leaving dormitory. Subject reports dreaming of the room for 6 consecutive nights prior. Physical evidence suggests subject has been sleepwalking to this location for several days. Subject reports compulsion to answer the call. When asked what the call is, subject cannot articulate, only that the room needs them. There were 19 subjects documented. All experienced the same pattern: recurring dreams, followed by somnambulant journeys to room 237, followed by... The logs ended abruptly. No outcomes recorded, just dates and initials, and the date, April 12, 2024, 11:47 p.m. Subject: we have 48 hours. We've been living in our dream home for 179 days. We have 2 days left to decide if we leave or if it lets us. My husband Rob and I entered the Meridian Dream Home Lottery last October. We'd been struggling, medical bills from our daughter Emma's surgery, student loans, credit card debt piling up. We were 3 months behind on rent. The lottery was free to enter, legitimate, run by Meridian Property Development. First prize, a fully furnished 3-bedroom house, mortgage-free, utilities included for 5 years. We won. They called us on November 1st. We signed the papers on November 3rd. We moved in on November 4th. The house was in a new development 20 minutes outside Asheville, North Carolina. Modern construction, smart home features, solar panels, the works. Appraisal value, $650,000. We couldn't believe our luck. The first month was perfect, better than perfect. The house seemed to anticipate our needs. Thermostat adjusted itself to our preferred temperatures. Lights dimmed automatically for Emma's bedtime routine. The refrigerator's ice maker produced exactly the right amount of ice for Rob's evening bourbon. Little things. Convenient things. We joked about having a psychic house. Then the little things became bigger things. Week 5, I woke up to find the groceries I'd forgotten to buy sitting on the kitchen counter. Milk, eggs, bread, still cold, receipts in the bag from a store I'd never been to. Rob thought he'd gone shopping in his sleep, but neither of us had left the house that night. The security system showed no exits or entries. Week 7, Emma's favorite stuffed rabbit disappeared. She was devastated. The next morning, it was sitting on her bed, freshly cleaned, with a small tear in its ear perfectly stitched. Emma swore she'd looked there. So had we. Week 9, I found my clothes laundered and folded in my drawer. Clothes I'd left in the came fully furnished, and we had minimal storage needs. But Emma's ball rolled up there somehow, and Rob went to retrieve it. He found boxes. Lots of boxes. Personal belongings that didn't belong to us. Photo albums, clothes, children's toys, documents. 5 different families worth of stuff. Each box was labeled with a name and dates. Patterson family, June 2018 to December 2018. Chin family, March 2019 to September 2019. Morrison family, November 2020 to May 2021. The photos showed families in our house. Different furniture arrangements, but the same rooms, the same layout. Happy families. Moving in photos. Birthday parties. Normal life. But each family's belongings ended at exactly 6 months. I researched the names. Found nothing. No social media profiles. No forwarding addresses. No obituaries. The Pattersons, the Chins, the Morrisons, the Nguyen's, the Delgados, all just gone. Relocated without a trace, according to public records. But their belongings were still here, boxed up in our attic like they'd been carefully preserved. We pulled out our contract that night and read it carefully. Really carefully. Page 7, paragraph 3, subsection B. Winners agree to occupy the property for a minimum of 6 months as primary residence. Failure to maintain occupancy for the full term will result in breach of contract and financial penalties equivalent to the property's full market value, plus legal fees. We couldn't leave without owing $650,000. We didn't have $650,000. We barely had $6,500. Our lawyer confirmed it. The contract was airtight. We'd signed it. We were bound to stay for 6 months minimum. That was day 67. We had 113 days left. We decided to wait it out. What choice did we have? That's when the house changed. Doors started locking on their own. Just for a few seconds, just enough to notice. The house would apologize through the smart speaker. Door temporarily locked for your safety. Potential draft detected. There was never a draft. This last account was posted to a forum for night shift workers 6 months ago. The original poster's username was Nidal_87. They were active in the community for years, thousands of posts. Always helpful, always around. After this post went live, they never logged in again. Here's what they wrote. He's been coming in every Tuesday at 3 a.m. for 6 months. Always buys the same thing. Always pays with quarters from 1947. And tonight, he finally spoke to me. I work nights at a gas station off Highway 50 in Nevada. Middle of nowhere, the kind of stretch where you can drive for 40 minutes without seeing another car. We get maybe a dozen customers per shift, truckers, insomniacs, people running from something. I've been doing this for 3 years. The pay is bad, but the solitude is good, and nobody bothers you out here. The patron, that's what I call him, started showing up last September. Every Tuesday, exactly 3 a.m., like clockwork. He's maybe 60, well-dressed in an old-fashioned way. Wool coat, fedora, polished shoes. Polite. He buys a pack of unfiltered Camels, a glass bottle of Coca-Cola. We're the only station in 50 miles that still stocks them, and pays with 10 quarters. The first few times, I didn't think much of it. Regular customers aren't unusual, even on night shift. But I noticed the quarters were old. Really old. I checked one after his fourth visit. 1947, real silver. I looked it up. Worth maybe $5 each. He was paying $50 for $7 worth of products. I tried to tell him once. He just smiled and said, "Keep the change." But tonight was different. Tonight, he set the quarters on the counter and said, "You've been watching me." I froze. Because I had been. I'd started documenting his visits, taking photos of the quarters, checking the security footage. The footage was weird. It showed him clearly, showed him entering and leaving, but the timestamp glitched every time. The clock would jump from 2:59 to 3:01, skipping the... "No," he said. "You're different. You notice things. That's why you're still here." He left without explaining. Just took his cigarettes and Coke and walked out into the desert night. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since. Let me back up. There are other regulars who only show up on Tuesday nights. Only when the patron is here. I didn't notice the pattern at first, but over the last few months, it became obvious. There's a woman who buys lottery tickets. Always the same numbers. Never says a word. There's a trucker who fills up his rig but never actually drives it. I've watched him pull in, pump gas, pay, then sit in the cab for hours until dawn. And there's a kid, maybe 19, who buys energy drinks and stares at the patron like he's waiting for something. They all pay in old currency. Different denominations, different years, but always pre-1950. Always real silver or real gold. I asked my day shift counterpart, Danny, if he knew any of them. He looked at me like I was crazy. "I've worked here for 5 years, he said. "Never seen anyone matching those descriptions, but they're on the security footage. Sort of. The timestamps glitch for all of them, and when I tried to pull up recordings from specific nights, whole hours were just missing, replaced with static or frozen frames. I started digging into the gas station's history. It was built in 1952, has changed ownership a dozen times, but it's always been open 24 hours. Always had a night shift clerk. I found old employee records in the storage room, boxes of paperwork nobody had touched in decades. And I found journals. 4 of them, hidden behind boxes of oil filters. Different handwriting, different years, but the same story. Night shift clerks documenting the patron, describing the same routine, the same regulars, the same old currency. The earliest journal was from 1959. The clerk, a guy named Harold, wrote about the patron appearing every week, always polite, always buying the same. The kid added, "We accepted. We're still here. Different stations, different shifts, but we're here. Working. Safe." I looked at them. Really looked. They didn't cast shadows under the fluorescent lights. "What happens if I refuse?" I asked. None of them answered. They just looked at each other, and the woman said, "The journals tell you what happens." The patron came back an hour ago, 4 a.m., which has never happened before. He set down a piece of paper on the counter. Yellowed, old, handwritten in perfect script. It was a contract, or maybe an invitation. It outlined terms of service and eternal employment and protection from what comes. It didn't specify what comes. It didn't specify what the service actually was. At the bottom, signed by next Tuesday, 3 a.m. This is the last offer. There are no second chances. Nidal_87 never posted again. Their profile shows their last login as the night they posted this story. The forum moderators marked the account as inactive after 90 days of silence. I tried to find the gas station. Highway 50 in Nevada has dozens of stations, and none of the owners I contacted knew anything about a clerk matching Nidal_87's description. But one owner, an older man who'd been in the business for 50 years, said something that 5 stories. 5 people who experienced something beyond explanation. The basement tenant who never left. The grain elevator hiding something ancient. The room that calls you in your sleep. The house that won't let go. And the patron still making his offer. But here's what I didn't tell you at the beginning. I laid out all 5 stories, looked at the dates, the locations, the details, and I found a pattern. A connection I didn't want to see. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Some of you in the comments have already figured it out. You know who you are. For everyone else, go back. Listen again. Pay attention to the dates. The cycles. The number.